Hello, this is KiwaniTalk. I'm Ray Scaboria. I'll be your host for this evening's program. KiwaniTalk is a public information program brought to you from the facilities of WDHS at Dearborn High School, and members of the Kiwanis Club and students who help us with our productions. Today, we're very happy to have as our guest David Culliton, who is the publicity governor for the I'm going to say it wrong.
I'll catch you, don't worry.
Dearborn, the Players Guild of Dearborn.
There you go, 100%.
Right.
Yates the quiz. Delightful.
And David, would you start a little bit by giving a little of your background, where you grew up, where you went to school, and then how you got involved with the Players Guild?
Absolutely. So I grew up in Livonia, Michigan, a little suburb kind of Detroit, about 30 minutes west. One of those classified suburb, way off. I just went to an elementary school called Webster, a middle school called Frost. I went to Catholic Central High School. And since I was a kid, always had a love for the theater and always kind of some yearning to pursue it, even when I didn't realize it. My mom kind of started to enlist me in theater programs when I was younger, and I was actually kind of resistant to it at first. I was like, why would I do theater? That's weird. As if I wasn't on a regular basis in my living room creating whole routines to perform "Be Our Guest" to the Beauty and the Beast soundtrack. But then kind of found a love for it and all things to do with it. Since I was a kid, my mom would take me to live performances, and they always enraptured me. And one of the ones that forever is kind of burned into my mind is when I was maybe 6, 7 years old. She took me to see Annie at the Players Guild of Dearborn. And I don't remember much about it. What I do remember is that the woman who played Mrs. Hannigan, who is now a woman I know named Nancy Valentini, was so good and so scary that I started sobbing in the middle of the performance. And my mom had to take me outside and be like, no, look, there's her headshot. She's just an actress. It's all fake. And I was like, yeah. So it's always been something that's enraptured me since I was little. And even when I was at Catholic Central, which is an all-boys school, they're the sports school, I was still like, where's the drama club? But I had always kind of had that love for the Players Guild deep down. My mom took me to see shows there ever since I was little. And over the years, it became this kind of paragon for me. To me, going to a show at the Players Guild was just as high quality as any touring Broadway production could be.
So now, tell me, did you go to other shows there after that first show?
Oh yeah. No, it didn't scare my emotionally scarring Annie experience. Did not ultimately scare me away. No, saw many over the years. I remember seeing Thoroughly Modern Millie, Kiss Me Kate. Oh man, The Drowsy Chaperone was one that I had always loved, had cherished as a memory. And to me, like, the people who did these were top caliber talent, and I almost viewed them as kind of my own personal celebrities. Which it sounds silly, but when you go and see some of the shows there, they're phenomenal. And so it always kind of stood to me as this paragon of what theater could be, even at a local level. And then when I was a sophomore in college, I was finishing up my second semester as a sophomore in college, and I wanted to do theater when I got back home. I wanted to do something over the summer that was more than just me slogging through my job. So I was like, and I'd always wanted to try my hand at directing. I'd acted in plenty of things before, but I wanted to try my hand at directing. So I was looking around at what places could have potential opportunities for me. And I saw the Players Guild put up a notice that said, we are looking for somebody to direct our teen musical this summer and our children's musical this summer. They were doing Grease and The Lion King Jr. And so I put in a director's application for both, was initially rejected actually, but then they called me back and said, well, our original choice for Lion King actually dropped out. You still interested? And I, of course, said yes. And I interviewed with them, and they brought me in. And immediately I just felt embraced by this community that for years had this kind of celebrity status in my mind.
Yeah. Now, where was the Lion King done at the theater?
Yep, they perform even their children's and teens shows at the theater itself.
I think we went to that.
You saw the Lion King.
I think we might have.
No kidding.
As I said, David, we've been members for with season tickets for about 15 years at least.
Well, but going to see the youth shows, that's a special extra level of dedication.
I think my wife said this might be fun, and everything we've gone to there we've enjoyed. I mean, come on, everything,
Well, I'm so glad. Yeah, no, that was if you saw that was my handiwork, and I started to become friends with these people that I had stars in my eyes for years, and so just and off the bat, I never felt like I was lesser for being the new guy. They immediately treated me as though I was part of the club and on the same level as an artist and all of them, and that's kind of what's kept me coming back, is this wonderful community.
Yeah, we talked a little bit earlier. We had interviewed a guest from the Players Guild of Dearborn. Am I saying it backwards?
No, you got it. Players Guild of Dearborn. Yes.
Before it was Mike Mosley.
Yes.
And we talked about Mike, and he was the guest that we interviewed. He was the president at the time.
Yeah, Mike has had leadership roles at the Guild for a long time. He's one of our kind of really established, really entrenched and dedicated members, and he was one of those people. I had seen him in several shows, and I was like, this guy is so talented. And then I actually had the great fortune of doing a play in 2019, I believe, called Peter and the Starcatcher, that was directed by another kind of high-profile member of the Guild, Brian Townsend. Seeing his name was actually part of the reason I went out for it. And Mike was in the cast for that. And so I was so starstruck because I was being directed by the great Brian Townsend and acting alongside the great Mike Mosley. But again, none of them have any pretense about like, oh, I'm this great established legacy member of the. No, they will take you in and nurture your talent and encourage you and are extremely giving artists and extremely generous, kind people. And I am now so pleased and honored to count both of them amongst dear friends of mine. And I always sit in awe of just everything they've done. Mike has done so much for the Guild. He's actually he was the leader of our COVID initiative. Kind of when COVID hit, he was the one who was tasked with creating a strategy committee to lead us through the pandemic.
Well, why don't you run us through what happened during COVID? Because it's really hard for an organization that's based on live performances with a live audience to go through something like that.
Yeah, that was a situation that was felt so deeply by the live theater community. I mean, obviously, every single person had their life flipped upside down by COVID, and their way of life flipped upside down by COVID. But live theater and a world where we have to sanction ourselves on and off in our home, they don't always mix super well. So I was actually kind of in the thick of this. I was in a production of The Glass Menagerie that was, we were a week into our run. We had a 3-week run. We had just finished our first weekend. People had been hearing rumblings about this virus and like people starting to shut down. This was getting really bad, really scary. And we were all holding our breath, hoping, praying, please let us get through our run without needing to worry about this. But then the decision was made to call off our second weekend of rehearsal, or our second weekend of performances. And then the call was made to just postpone the run entirely. And then that postponement turned into a cancellation when we realized this is not a 2-week, it'll blow over. This is going on for months and months and months. So we got that shut down. We lost our show because of that. A show had just been cast. We had just cast our production of Anything Goes, and so that also got axed. They had a single rehearsal and then got cut off as well. And we retreated all into our homes, and kind of sat there wondering, how are we going to get the guild through this? We were in this tough situation where we couldn't do the thing that brings us money, brings us our community, brings us together as a group. And so at this point, I was not on the Board of Governors. I was a lay person, if you will. But as I understand it, the Board of Governors elected to assemble a committee that was meant to strategize. They tracked CDC regulations, CDC guidelines, and started to figure out what we could and could not do. And we moved digital. We put together a series of online cabarets in which people could submit videos of themselves singing songs, and we kind of assembled them into one big show with themes to it.
Let me ask some questions. Were you still able to do this at the theater? Did you still operate at the theater?
Not at first. At first, all of this was done completely from everybody's homes. The Players Guild stayed dormant for a while. We did get one kind of once restrictions started to be lifted a little. We started to trickle back to the theater. Something that was really meaningful to me was
after like 3 or 4 months.
After might have even been longer than that. I think sometime in the fall. My cast for the Glass Menagerie, we decided that now that we could start at least being in the same space, social distancing, our set had not been touched, and we were fortunate enough to have the decision made that we were allowed to come back to the guild, get into costume one last time, and take our cast picture. Nice. We didn't even have a picture of our cast together in full costume. So there were only 4 of us, so we social distance across our set and got into poses and took our cast picture together. So we had that at least.
Now I'm going to interrupt you, and we're going to go on a little bit. So you had a whole year of that, which was strictly, you know, what would you say, video? It was all, you know, on the air, but you had no live performances for a full year.
Yes. We didn't get back into live performances.
Actually, more than a full year. It was like a year and
I believe it was May 2021 was our first time. Our first live performance back of Anything Goes. Sometime there, and then we also around that time allowed our teenagers to have an outdoor performance of the musical Godspell that was kind of a special.
Now, what happened then in the fall of 2010? Were you able to continue a full program of 5 shows?
Well, not 5 shows. It was condensed down to 4.
4. Okay.
We elected to. We brought back a couple of the shows we were originally planning on doing in the lost season of 2020-2021. We brought back Anything Goes, and we brought back a play called The Nerd. Actually, no. Wait. Oh, sorry, I'm mistaken. Godspell was our first live one back, and then we went into our 4-show season. We did a play that was written by actually Brian Townsend called Murder Comes to Uptight Abbey. He, because of our financial restrictions, very kindly let us do it without needing to pay him for the rights. And then we were going to do a review in the winter called the Players Guild Encore, but that ended up having to get postponed. We then did a play called The Nerd, and then we did Anything Goes. And The Nerd and Anything Goes were the 2 lost shows. We kind of revived them, brought them back, and started to bring ourselves back to normalcy by doing so.
David, we're in a minute here. We're going to take a break.
Yes.
And after the break, I'd like to spend some time talking about your recent show that was so successful.
Yes.
I'd like to talk about that one.
Absolutely.
And of course, we have some, as I said, there's a couple of members of our church that were in it, and so I knew them pretty well. And but that was Sister Act.
Yes.
And we'll talk more about it after the break. Join us again as talking about the Players Guild of Dearborn with Dave Culliton right after this.
Who is a kid? Well, that's a kid. And another. look, a gaggle of them. Or is it a herd? Litter? Pride. But what about her? Tell her she's not a kid. Or him. So how do we tell who is a kid? Height? Age, maybe. But some of us have to grow up faster than others. A kid. A kid. A kid wants to make the world better. And one day, he just might. Is a kid fearless? Vulnerable? Strong? Nervous? Yes. 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 Kiwanis is 600,000 kids at heart doing all the little and big things it takes to help children around the world. Because kids need Kiwanis. All of them.
Hello, we're back here at KiwaniTalk, and I'm here with David Culliton from the Players Guild of Dearborn. David is the promotional governor.
Publicity governor.
Publicity governor. I got the...
I'll take it. No, I'll take it. I'll take it.
Close.
Effectively the same thing.
Okay. Well, what we want to talk about a little bit is your most recent performance was called Sisters Act.
Yes.
And my wife and I went to it. All of the plays are good, but this one was really terrific. It really was.
On a whole other level, yeah.
Yeah, and it was so upbeat all the way through it.
Yes.
You know, there were times where there were a few times when the audience got a little noisy and you missed a word or two, but that was only because the place was full.
Yes.
You know.
Absolutely.
But tell me a little bit about how that show, what led up to that show.
Yeah.
And
so
big cast too.
Oh yeah, no, so much about that show was so exciting. So I have the great fortune of, on top of my role as publicity governor, I am also a member of the script committee, which helps pick shows for each season. And so discussing what our season for 2022-2023 was hugely important for us. We had been struggling post-COVID with attendance. People just weren't coming to see our shows, and we were trying to put the word out there in all of our normal ways, but people just weren't. So we were like, we need a strong season with recognizable shows. And something else that was very important to us was starting to push for more diversity on our stage. We are a theater that's been around for 95 years, and we live in such a diverse community that we wanted to start really promoting that, putting our money where our mouth was, as being a true community theater. And so on the publicity committee, several of us were pushing for Sister Act. For those unfamiliar, it was originally a movie in the 90s starring Whoopi Goldberg, and it is a show that is meant to be led by a black woman, which is not something we'd really had on our stage before. At least not one that was meant to be so. So we were so excited about the fact that it was this recognizable name, and it was a show that called on our community, actors of color in our community, to say, we have a place that is explicitly laid out for you in this show. We want you to be here. We want you to contribute your talents to us. And the talent we got was so phenomenal because of that. And what's more is, with such a large cast, there was so much enthusiasm about the whole thing. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, you have some great black performers. That we've seen them in 3 or 4, maybe even 5 different shows. And there's one gentleman he's got the greatest sense of humor.
I believe you're probably talking about Kenyatta. Yeah. He was one of the leads in this one.
Yeah.
Yep.
He was the one with the fast change.
Yes, yes, that is Kenyatta Davis, another dear friend of mine. He's been a mainstay of the Guild for years and years, and a delightful human on top of one of the greatest talents you will just ever meet, effortlessly so. And it was so cool to start to bring out that side of our community. We had other kind of bigger developments in that field. Over the summer, one of our teen shows, we had a local Muslim high schooler in one of our leads. A girl with a hijab was one of our leading players, and I don't think we are in Dearborn, which has such a wonderfully large Muslim community, yet we saw so little participation from the community. And so, just having a hijabi girl in a leading role in one of our shows, we're so excited to start to see greater community outreach, not just to the white people in the selective areas who are like, yeah, we're theater nerds, but people who really want to share their talents and giving them a place to do so. It's just so exciting. It's a very exciting development for us. We also, a couple years back, had a musical, It Should Have Been You, which kind of puts some more direct mainstream gay representation on our stage. It's just so wonderful to feel like we're outreaching to everybody. Say to every single person who could possibly want to see our shows or be in our shows, this is a place that sees you. This is a place that welcomes you. This is a place that actively wants you here.
Now, tell me a little about this. Prior to Sister Act, you must have been involved in some of the promotion to encourage people to come to it. Tell us a little bit about where you advertised and where you got out the word that the show is going to be on, and then tell us the results.
Well, as much as I would love to take credit personally for the massive success, I cannot remotely do so. I am one man. I have a phenomenal committee behind me, dedicated people who work our social media, who create graphics, who will help me order promotional materials that can be distributed to the community. We are lucky enough to kind of start to get some more promotional community partners. We have a wonderful contact at WWJ Radio who has been starting to conduct regular interviews for each of our shows that some people have said have brought them to see us. And honestly, one of the biggest things when it comes to the success of Sister Act was the enthusiasm of the cast itself. Yeah. Every single person involved in that show believed in it so deeply and had such a great love for the material they were producing. Every single person went out and talked the ear off, I guarantee you, talked the ear off of all their family, of every friend, every random person on the street who would listen. That was really where the success came from, was we had my team spreading word through our normal channels, us starting to expand out our normal channels a little bit, and then the membership of the guild having an enthusiasm for telling everybody, please come see the show, and the cast themselves saying, hey, you person I know and love, come see, support me. And I think all of that combined created this perfect storm where, for the first time in, if I recall correctly, over a decade, we sold out every single performance of that show.
You did. I mean, that was news that was available in the papers. They were telling
yes.
They were saying, hey, listen, if anybody doesn't want to come, we'll give you a refund because we got other people that want to come.
Yes, yeah, no, there were so many. That's the exciting thing too, is it didn't just cap off at we got every single person, every single seat filled every single night. We had legions of people who wanted those tickets and couldn't. I almost missed out on getting tickets. I very foolishly waited until the first weekend of performances to buy my tickets, and I think when I went on, there were exactly 9 left, and I snatched up one of them, and I was like, all right, now there's 8 left.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, we talked about Leslie Garver, and she was the what they call it, the nun.
She played Sister Mary Lazarus, who her kind of joke in the show is that.
But she was the one that came on to liven up the music.
Yeah, she's the old grump nun, but she discovers a penchant for rapping. So at some point they had her come out with a tilted baseball cap atop her habit, spitting bars in the name of Jesus.
And then her daughter was.
Yes.
I forget her daughter's first name.
I believe it's Emma or Emily. Yeah.
She was the one that organized all the dancing.
She was the choreographer. Yes, she
choreographer,
was.
yeah.
She put together these phenomenal production numbers. I have never seen a legion of women in nuns' habits look so flashy as I have dancing around that stage. And with such a large cast, having to organize numbers like that can be such a task. And she accomplished it so deftly.
David, I'm going to cut in here because we
Please.
only have 3 minutes to go.
Oh.
And I'd like to talk a little bit, I'd like you to talk a little bit about, say if someone wants to be involved in the Guild and become a member, just talk a little bit about that. I mean, there's so many things to do.
Oh my gosh.
It's not just being in shows. There's all kinds
Yes.
of backstage work and promotional work and that sort of thing.
We have a large member base, and it's so wonderful to have such a large community. You become a member essentially by getting involved in our shows. Of course, that can come with auditioning for shows and being cast in one. But on top of that, you can get involved in any one of our committees, help out backstage on shows. There's also an option to be kind of an honorary passive member. You pay a little bit of an extra membership due, and you can kind of just sit back and reap the benefits of a couple free tickets for each show without having to actually get involved in any productions. We just cast our final show of the season. We're in rehearsals. We're about to put up a play, Becky's New Car, with both veteran and new members alike, which I highly recommend. Come see it. It opens next Friday. We just cast our final musical of the season, La Cage aux Folles, that goes up in May, and we have a new season picked out that we can't announce yet for next year, but some phenomenal shows with a little bit of something for everybody that I highly recommend people come out and get involved in, either by auditioning or getting involved in a production design element. People who are good at hair or makeup are always helpful to us. People who can sew, please come help with costumes. There's so much to do.
Well, you mentioned that if you become a member, there are dues, but they're pretty nominal.
Yeah, I believe it's
not a lot.
somewhere around $45 for a standard membership. They have if you're a student age like I am, they have it a bit cheaper for someone living on a budget. Quite nice. Like I said, the kind of more passive membership where you don't have to get involved at all. That's a slightly higher fee. So to kind of justify the fact that you can kind of just sit back and relax the whole season, but still get the perks, that sort of thing.
Yeah. So we're in our last minute, but
yes.
But I want to say personally that my wife and I, we've never been members or anything like that, but we've had season tickets for, as I said, at least 15 years.
Yes.
Maybe longer, and we've enjoyed it immensely. And anybody that's looking for a 6 nights out a year,
absolutely,
to have a very pleasant evening at very reasonable cost.
Oh yeah, no, that's something we pride ourselves on. Like I said, our next play, Becky's New Car, opens next Friday, and that is not one to be missed. It is a show that's very unique. It's got a lot of audience interaction in it, in these very kind of silly, entertaining ways. Even if it's a show you haven't heard of before, please give it a try.
David, I'm sorry we're there. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank
David
you for having me,
Culliton,
Ray.
Program publicity chairman.
Governor,
Governor for the Players Guild of Dearborn. Join us again on KiwaniTalk soon.